All right, and welcome to the TSG Multimedia video podcast for March 1st. This is John sitting here with
Dan,
as usual, and we're looking at a heritage unit here. Before we get started, I want to mention that we get a lot of questions that are entered in the comment section below the video on the YouTube site, and we're very unlikely to answer questions in that area because we don't always see them. So if you have a question or a comment, please email us at podcast@tsgmultimedia.com. So what's the story here? This is a heritage unit, right?
yeah, this is an Athearn SD70 Ace, and it's HO scale.
Right.
And the reason I have this, well, if you know my usual modeling is the 1990s, which just doesn't fit into it all, but it was the WP unit, and I really liked the WP unit, so I had to have a model of it.
Was it a bargain, or was it
No,
just wanted
I
it?
just wanted it.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw this one, the real thing, at Portola in 2005 when it was brand new.
Oh, nice.
And I actually got to go in it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, they had it open, and you could walk through it and stuff.
Pretty cool.
So,
Didn't this also help the, what was it? The
844.
844 over the Ketty Y too?
Yeah, in fact,
we have it on video.
I have footage of it, yeah.
Yeah, I
we
thought
have
so.
footage of that. So this one was kind of, I guess you could say, a little special to me. It's the one I've seen the most often in person. And anyway, it's also the only SD70 Ace that I have in HO scale. So that's why I used this one. And what I wanted to talk about was the lighting, because I've replaced the lighting, which was originally bulbs, with LEDs.
Right.
Like I usually do. But there was an article in Model Railroader in the February 2014 issue, and it's on page 74. And the author of that article did the same thing, only he did it a little differently than I did.
Right.
And I thought it was a good idea, but there was a little bit of a problem. And what he did, I think, was use these little surface mount LEDs like this one.
Okay.
And mount them either right behind or right inside the headlight housing.
Okay.
So you basically
makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
basically you'd have to use two of these, one for each lens, right? And the problem with that, of putting them right here, is that these things are so bright that they actually will glow through the plastic. And if you look at the photo on page 74 in the February 2014 Model Railroader, you can actually see the entire headlight housing is glowing.
This was published?
Yeah.
Like on something that you pay for, magazine?
Yeah, and Model Railroader of all places too.
I'm really surprised. Isn't that like the premier magazine for this stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't really like that look. I mean, I like the idea of using LEDs because they're nice and bright and they last longer than bulbs, and they don't make heat.
But they shouldn't show through the plastic, though.
No, and that is a problem.
I'm not even a modeler, and I know that.
Yeah, that is a problem though. If you use LEDs, that you have to take that into account. Very minimally, you should paint the inside of the headlight housing or something black.
Right.
Which won't show, hopefully, if you do it right, but it blocks some of the light, from getting out. And sometimes you may have to use 2 or 3 coats of black, because, these things are really bright.
Yeah.
So I did mine a little differently. One thing nice about these engines is that the roof is removable. So what I did instead was to use a 3mm LED like this one. And it's actually mounted back here someplace. And what I do with these is I put a little piece of heat shrink tubing around it like this, which does 2 things. One, it acts as a light block.
Right.
So this
I can
keeps
totally see that.
any light from getting out the sides. Okay. And it also acts as a holder so that these fiber optic strands have something holding them against the front of the LED, otherwise they won't light up.
Oh, I see. Those are fiber optic strands.
Right.
Are they painted, or is that
These are
heat
painted,
shrink?
yeah. I actually painted these black. And the reason for that, they're normally just clear.
Right.
But if you don't paint them, it'll actually, enough light will escape to make the cab glow.
So that's kind of cool. I didn't know. Well, I guess it makes sense because the light gets transmitted through like the core of the thing.
Yeah.
So you could paint it any color and it wouldn't probably wouldn't leak, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it doesn't leak much light.
Yeah.
It's actually very subtle. And actually, I was thinking it might even be a way to light the cab if you wanted to just have a strand come through that doesn't even go anywhere, that you could hook up to a different LED, and have a cab light if you wanted it. I didn't do that in this model, but you could. But anyway, with this method, and then I actually added this little piece of plastic here, this white piece of plastic.
Right, that looks like something you would have added, yeah.
Yeah, and this is nothing but, well, it does two things. One, it helps hold these down, and two, it serves as a light block, because there's a little hole back here that the original wires for the bulbs pass through, and now the fiber optic strands pass through. And so you could see a little bit of light from this LED coming out there, and so this is just to help block that.
Right.
So I didn't want the headlight to be shining through the cab windows, But other than that, this is pretty stock, except for that I changed the bulbs to these fiber optic strands. And these are held in place, so I don't know if you can see it, but there's little short links of 1/16 outside diameter aluminum tubing here.
Yeah, I can see something there. Let's try to move this a little bit and see.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
I
which
totally
is
see that. This is something we cover a lot on this new video that's coming out pretty soon.
Right, the weathering and detailing diesels. Yeah, I talk about how to do this kind of lighting.
Yeah, so each one of those little things is one of those little tubes cut short to hold the... Oh, yeah.
It just, all that does is hold the fiber optic strand in place so it doesn't flop around. Okay. And it makes for a nice looking headlight. They're very bright. They actually will shine and illuminate the track in front of the engine just like a real headlight. But it's works pretty well, and then you don't have any issues with this, because the light's way back here. It doesn't make any of this plastic glow.
Right.
So you don't have that problem. And the only other thing I had to do was I had to file a bit of a groove, or actually a pair of grooves, in the roof here on the underside, just to make a little clearance for this for these strands, because otherwise the roof wasn't seating all the way down. But that was just a little bit of work with a couple of round files, and
it doesn't look like much really.
It isn't. You can't go too far because you don't want to cut the roof in half. That would be bad.
Why not?
yeah, that wouldn't be good. But it was just to make a little bit of clearance. But other than that, it's pretty stock.
And I like how that does accommodate the little tubes there. And the other thing that's kind of cool about that is you can't see the tubes even if you're looking into the cab from the outside. No,
they're so high up that unless you're looking at the engine from way down here, which who does that?
You would have to be looking for them to see them. Is kind of what I'm saying. But,
yeah. The only time I could think is if you have a layout with a really tall bridge that goes over your head or something. But even then,
yeah, everybody has one of those.
Yeah. Most of us don't have that kind of a layout, so from normal viewing angles, you'd never see it.
Right.
So, and if you really wanted to, you could even disguise it somehow, but I think that would be a waste of effort, honestly.
There's no reason to.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Well, there you go, I guess. Maybe they should have hired you to write the article.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I'm going to take a look at this picture in the magazine. I don't think we should show the picture because we don't own it.
Yeah,
and,
that would be...
there might be some copyright issues with that. But what I'd like to do, if we can, is recreate the picture and show this model in the same pose, and that way people can look at page, what was it, 74? Of
February 2014 issue, Model
Railroader. And you can see what this would look like if it had been done this way.
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong way, but I think looking at the picture, now that I've seen it, this is a lot better,
Well, I think it looks a little more realistic.
It looks more realistic, and it just looks better, period,
Yeah. Now, their engine is just a regular old yellow UP.
Same thing, though?
It's the same. Otherwise, it's the same model.
Yeah, it'll suffice.
Different paint job, but other than that, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, then as people are looking at this picture, I guess we'll log out of this thing. Thanks for tuning in again. And don't forget, if you have a comment or a question, to send an email to podcast@tsgmultimedia.com if you would like a response. And we will see you on April Fool's Day for the next video podcast. And your next audio podcast is coming up on March 15th. So thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks.